Launching a business can take you on a journey unlike any other, filled with anticipation, uncertainty, and the constant search for answers. You're never quite sure what's coming next, which is why it helps to have a partner that does. Plan for the future of your business with the bank trusted by 50% of US-based, venture-backed tech and life science companies. Silicon Valley Bank, built for what's next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Gao, and I'm a VP at Sapphire Ventures. Today, we are speaking with two transformational CIOs of global enterprises, Meera Rajwal of Citrix and Mark Bloom of Aegon. Meera and Mark are joining us today to answer a question that's probably on a lot of people's minds right now. How are global CIOs navigating today's murky waters while at the same time imbuing their organizations with not just resiliency, but also agility and innovation? Meera, I'd love to start with you first. You've held the role of a CIO across multiple organizations. And in each role, you've had to balance and juggle long-term transformational goals versus adapting and changing to short and medium-term changes to the business as well as the market. In the context of the recent macro shock caused by COVID-19, what initiatives are you accelerating or deprioritizing at Citrix?
Great question, Kathy. If the way you said the macroeconomic shock or macro shock more than anything, it to me is the most impact was to human, right? And if you kind of think about any business, people are core at the business. So for us, the main focus has been how are we going to ensure our employees' safety and their experience to continue to work are going to be there, right? The experience translates into the way you said they continue to be productive and innovative to the business, what the need needs to be. Also the other area that we are looking at, so our investment in that area is continuing to, go higher up. The other area is we have been in the cloud journey even before the pandemic hit. However, with pandemic, we are really doubling down on move to the cloud wherever appropriate, which actually puts the other way around our data center investment, the traditional way of any refreshes, etc. We are reevaluating. Is it the right place to do, or we should be moving the workload to the cloud, and or we should be even consolidating and eliminating. Right, simplification is another area we continue to prioritize. When it comes to where we are de-emphasizing, I think it is more than de-emphasizing. We are re-looking at what does that mean, because we truly believe the future is going to be hybrid work. It's a location irrelevance. People should be able to work the same way, whether they are working from home or they are in the office or they are in Starbucks. So when you come into that location irrelevance, physical location, what we generally call the real estate projects, we are re-looking at it because it's a big investment for the business. We need to make sure that investment is going to be evaluated in the context of hybrid work, whether it is in the form of flexible workplaces or a purpose-built configuration of the physical space, because we truly believe there is a value for people to come in. It's like a ritual. People feel empowered when they come in, when they connect with their friends. And so we do want to provide that option and we do want to have that, but it has to be a purpose-built rather than the traditional approach of here is your office space. Those are kind of the major areas that we are focused on.
Thank you, Meera. Mark, global economic uncertainty. That's certainly a reason to rethink innovation budgets. But arguably, now is more crucial than ever to lead with innovation. Can you share with us how you're thinking about continuing to lead with innovation currently at Aegon?
Yeah, I would say, to your point, Kathy, you say arguably. I would say it's inarguably. Right? To your point, innovation is now more important than ever. Innovation is a form of employee engagement and employee empowerment. And as Mira said, it really starts with the employee. Right? The employee is where the center of the innovation should be. With so many companies suffering through the pandemic with top line pressures, that's obviously created bottom line pressures. And that really becomes the best form of innovation, is to leverage your employee base to get at how to increase that top line as well as focus on any bottom line modifications that need to happen. We've actually moved away from a lot of centralized innovation activities because those don't tend to involve the employees as much. We're trying to much more empower our employees to come up with those ideas to create more of that top line opportunity as well as the bottom line opportunities. And with that, because we're asking so much of our people in this current work from home situation, it's also important to reward and recognize people. Most of our leaders today are doing some form of communication over collaboration tools with town halls, or just making sure that you're staying engaged with the employee base. What an easy way to connect, recognize, and thank people for going above and beyond to come up with an innovative idea. One of the other things we've done at Aegon is we have a weekly management meeting. And at that management meeting, we will bring to that meeting one or two examples where people have come up with an innovative idea. And somebody from the management team outside of that direct line of management will call that employee directly to thank and recognize them for their contribution. That has gone a significant distance with our employee base.
I think, Mark, you brought up a really good point. One area that we noticed in ours is, as you said, innovation is not something you can stop because you're going to die. So one area that we really double down on is how can we leverage technologies or provide that enabling technologies, right? The digital space need to provide them the same level of capability and empowerment they had when they were physically coming together. So things like whiteboarding, complex problem solving involving stickies and micro video capture. And what we are hearing now as a feedback from some of our employees is with this type of collaboration, they really have a much more broader reach of tapping into geolocation of people. And the second thing is they all know that the playing field is level, right? It's not some people are inside the office, some are on the microphone telling, hey, can you hear me? Can you tell me again? Everybody is in the same playing field and they feel the focus and the purposeful innovation is a much more better outcome than what it used to be when you have half the population inside the room, the other half try to catch up remotely on the phone or something like that. So I think technology for us, it actually has been a great enabler in how we are moving in the digital space.
And then enabling our employees to have that opportunity,
exactly.
Right, and listening to them.
Exactly.
I want to continue on this trend, and this is one of the top questions we were asked by the audience, which is, how do organizations effectively adapt to this new work from home paradigm? And I want to ask you this, Mira. Citrix is in an interesting position because it's a company that enables its customers to collaborate remotely, collaborate virtually. At the same time, this year, you've had to lead your organization into shifting towards a work from home environment as well. Perhaps drawing on what you've seen from either customers or at Citrix, any things that have worked very well and any common pitfalls?
Absolutely, Kathy. So one of the common theme we saw across the board is the customers who had a foot in the cloud had a much easier time when the crisis hit. And we call that as the wave one, right? I mean, for us, it was like on a Friday, the CEO called for a meeting and said, hey, we have to take our employee safety as the highest, utmost important thing for the business. We are going to all go remote. 10,000 people flip the switch Monday morning, we are remote, right? And people who had a foot in the cloud were able to scale up and down, whether it is bursting out on network capacity using something like an SD-WAN or delivering their applications dynamically and distributing the load through application delivery controllers, or it is something like, simple thing like they can scale into the workload into the cloud, public clouds because they had the control plane or because they had the infrastructure connectivity already in place. But when the crisis mode is over, I would say the crisis mode is probably we saw that pattern for a few weeks because companies were coming as with they're looking at it as disaster recovery or business continuity kind of a approach. The second wave we saw is people recognize it's not few weeks. It's like they have to sustain. They can't have a productivity dip. They have to, regardless of the industry, they have the business to run and they have to sustain the business, right? The second wave we saw, it's more of a short to midterm thinking. Okay, what do I really need to invest on? What do I need to, continue into for a period of time, maybe 12 months, right? But we are seeing customers, the third wave of customers, I call the thought leaders who are thinking ahead, not just in the current pandemic, they really look this adversity as an advantage and redefining what is the future of work. In Citrix, we are doing the same thing. What is the future of work going to be? Because we truly believe the future of work is going to be a hybrid work where people will choose where they want to work from, how they want to work from. And we have to be, as technology, able to provide that experience that will help them to be productive and innovative, right? The third group of people we see, they look at that from 4 C's. The first C being connectivity, right? I mean, my ability to connect in a secure and high-performing way, right? Both are super important. Today, the attack surface has changed, so security has to be baked into every step of the way. And this is where your technologies, like whether it is your router switches, firewall, SD-WAN, you name it, ADC, all those play in. But once I connect, my immediate next thing is I want access to my resources, which I call the content, right? The content could be a simple file, or it could be a chat. It could be as complicated as an entire desktop or an entire development environment, right? I mean, your integrated development environment. But once you connect and get access to your resources, the next thing is you're going to work with people. That's where the collaboration comes into picture. The collaboration, simple things from audio, video to file collaboration to more complicated global teams working on an innovative solution using whiteboarding, sticky notes, etc., right? All those comes into play. But the most important C, I would call it the fourth C, which is non-technical, because a lot of times we, as CIOs and technologies, we look at everything technology, but the fourth C is to the glue to me, which is the culture, right? And in our case, myself and our Chief People Officer, Donna Kimmel, we kind of joke around, we are the BFFs, but we truly mean it. I mean, even in, media, we said we are the BFF, which is truly we meant it, because I wouldn't have been here today where we need to be in our journey without the partnership we had with HR. The reason what I mean by that is they are continuously listening to the employees. They are looking at incentives. They're looking at what is the right culture to embed. How can we move the organizational human element of it, right? All of that needs to be, and also taking care of the well-being. In fact, one of the things in the initial days we saw was technology overload. And HR kind of came to us and say, okay, how do we ensure we are bringing the well-being into it? Yoga classes and this and that. So it's really important, the culture setting, saying, hey, we are providing you an environment that will empower you, help you to be productive and manage your work and life. Because today, none of our life is like, I have a spouse working from home, a puppy around, running around, all those things, and we are working in the middle of it, right? So it's just having that empathy. A lot of times, IT, sometimes we miss it, and that's what actually made it all stick together for us.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that cultural point. That's kind of what I was alluding to when I was talking about innovation and the employee engagement. As people are working from home, you really somewhat lost the identity, right? That connection with your company that's through the office place. And so that whole cultural aspect really is important. So I completely agree with that message, Neera.
And it's so important to highlight that some of the themes we talked about earlier, right? We talked about resiliency. We talked about agility. We talked about innovation. All of those things can be applied to IT and technology, certainly, but it can also apply to people and culture. And I think those are great points, Mark and Meera. Thanks for reminding us of those. Mark, turning to Aegon. Aegon has a vast, global, distributed workforce. How have you dealt with transitioning to a work from home environment? And is it even feasible from an IT perspective to run with this type of paradigm in perpetuity?
Yeah. So again, we all dealt with the immediacy of what the pandemic created, right? So one day we were in the office, the next day we were all asked to work from home, right? And so that obviously put lots of strain on all of our IT organizations. There were two things that we focused on. Number one was the well-being of our people, and number two was the well-being of our customers and being there for our customers. I think we took all the right steps to make those happen. We expanded the network capacity. We got extra mobile devices for our people. We have partners we work with in an outsourcing engagement. So again, our customers don't know that we've got an outsourcing partner, but we had to ensure they were also ready for business. So we had to ensure they were also appropriately outfitted. We run call centers around the world. And of course, those call centers are used to being in an office with phones and recording systems, etc. All of a sudden, that had to be at home. So we dealt with putting online phones, IP-based phones, soft phones, right, recording systems, all that had to get online. We were able to take care of that in a matter of days. We felt really, really good on how we responded. A, to ensure our people were safe and sound, and then B, to ensure that our customers were cared for. And we did put in place systems where our people were able to check in to ensure that they were all safe and sound. One of the other things that we put in place were policies. So again, when people are now working from home, you have people that just want extra computers, right? They want extra monitors. They want to be able to print. Their chair at home is old and rickety, so they want their desk chair, right? And so you had to put policies in place to manage all that. And again, those continue to be in place today as people are in this working from home situation longer. When you think about can this go on, right? Can the IT support be there for a longer period of time? The good news is many of our technology partners like Citrix, like Microsoft, etc., have put these sort of tools in place. So the tools themselves are very stable. They're continuing to get additional capabilities. So I feel really good about the technology platforms themselves. Many of us now all use collaboration tools like it's commonplace. But what still isn't there yet, in my opinion, are things like home internet. So yes, people are working from home, but unfortunately, you're going to be in a call sometimes and your home internet will drop. Now, you can get into network connected devices, get a little expensive. Some companies have elected to do that. But again, as you deal with the uncertainty of home internet, that is one piece called the last mile that people still have to work their way through. The second piece, and while the technology platforms are there, this gets back to Mira's piece on culture, is as our teams as our companies continue to work more in a team structure, and as the offices begin to open up again, you're going to have people in offices as well as people working from home. And the effectiveness of that team could in fact be impacted by the people that are not co-located, whether they're primarily in the office or primarily at home. And so again, being mindful of the effectiveness of those teams is also something to be mindful of as we're dealing with this work from home paradigm for longer.
Thank you so much, Mark. At Sapphire Ventures, being a venture capital firm, we've seen a lot of startups get started this year, as well as really take off. Startups that are focused on filling in the gaps as we shift from the physical world to the virtual world, from the workplace setting and vice versa. There's a lot of people in our audience today who are startup founders who I'm sure would love to work with Citrix or Aegon. Mira, any areas that you're particularly focused on from a startup perspective today? And perhaps what's one piece of advice that you would give a fledgling startup founder who would want to work with Citrix?
Tough question. I'll try. No, actually, you kind of hit on it, right? I mean, for me, when I look at the areas of focus where we're going to continue is definitely we will continue to make sure that hybrid work is very effective for the business. So innovation around that area and really ensuring what is going to further the productivity and what is going to further the engagement, what is going to further the empowerment for our employees is going to be super important. And that area, I don't see this going away, because when we talk about back to normal, my philosophy of back to normal is the normal is going to not look like anything we saw pre-COVID as a normal, right? It's a new normal that's going to happen. Hybrid work is a new normal, right? And there are attributes of that going to get defined and refined over a period of time. So that will continue for me as a focus area. Number two, data is becoming even more important. I mean, we call data as the new oil. For me, it's going to continue, especially even, our customers ask, and I see it in my own, how do we ensure we are having data around our employee productivity without infringing into their privacy, right? Things like that, that's going to continue to come, and data is an area that we'll continue to focus. The third area probably I would say is a very broad spectrum, I'm going to say, but the word automation can be interpreted in many ways. But I do think that, when startups are looking at automation, don't generalize that this is automation, but pick a context, pick a focus and say, what is that? And it is probably not you're going to have, RPA, you name it, some of that AI, ML, RPA, those things will continue. But to me, automation is organizations are going to double down in a context and what is relevant to their industries, right? I've been talking to one of my friends, and they're in a big manufacturing sector. They're going to be doubling down on remote hands as their number one priority. After the pandemic, they felt like if only they had remote hands as a capability, they wouldn't have got that production losses that they have to take in the initial days before they could get the business starting, and with social distancing, etc. It's a whole different animal, right? So the automation notion is going to be there. You pick an area where you feel, but more relevant in business value. The one advice I can give to entrepreneurs is, because if you can think about what situation we are in, we are a little bit of uncertainty from a macroeconomics point of view, right? I mean, businesses are, even if they are making and beating, Citrix, we have beat our quarter like for the last 2 quarters consistently, and but we still be cognizant about, okay, where do we want to make the investment, right? That doesn't mean we are not going to make the investment. For us, something like, is there a business value that is relevant for us? So when you're coming as a startup, talk value to me, why I should consider, or what is the pain that you're going to solve for me, and also help me to make the decision quickly. If it is not the right decision, engage with me to figure out when is the right time to come back, because it's not always like never is never ever. It is never is for now, and then there's always, salespeople know this for well more than anybody, right? So to me, that's the focus on value, help us with quick decision making.
Thank you. That's great advice. And Mark, I'm going to give you the last word. Perhaps what's one piece of advice you would give to a startup founder who is looking to work with you and Aegon?
One word of advice. I guess my one word of advice would be culture, back to the cultural aspect that both Mira and I have hit on. So don't underestimate the velocity or lack of velocity that large companies move at. And small startups can move in a much more nimble, agile fashion. They tend to be digital native. And there's lots and lots that companies like Aegon can learn from startups, right, on how to operate at a much higher velocity and a much more differentiating velocity. So as you are talking to companies like Aegon and others, do not lose the opportunity to talk about how you can affect those companies culturally as well as with your capabilities.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I think that's a wrap from us. Thank you so much for listening in on our discussion today. We hope you enjoyed it, and have a great day.
Thank you, Kathy, for having us here.
Thank you, Kathy.